Like, I keep my ear to the streets. Like, I'm aware of every single artist in every region doing what. Like, I'm one of those type of people that really sit around and like search these sites and look for new artists.
Let me ask the question that everyone whispers but nobody wants to say out loud. Did Missy Elliott know more about Aaliyah's final days than she's ever admitted? Or are fans stitching together grief, gossip, and half memories until it looks like a secret? We're going to separate hard facts from hot talk with a light touch so the story stays spicy, not sterile. And we're doing it with receipts, context from the circle, and a reality check on what people think Rah Digga revealed versus what's actually on record. Aaliyah's legacy sits at the center of 1,000 rumors because her life felt cinematic even before it turned tragic. She was the cool that everyone tried to copy and the calm that made the chaos stop, which is exactly why the story of her last flight, the people around her, the decisions that led to that runway, and the silences afterward continue to pull us in. Today we'll walk the timeline, track the relationships, and test the internet's favorite theories without losing the mystery that keeps us watching. Here's what's firm at the top, one time and one time only. On August 25th, 2001, a small twin-engine plane crashed shortly after takeoff from Marsh Harbor Airport in the Abaco Islands, Bahamas. Aaliyah and 8 others were on board. There were no survivors. Official reports say the aircraft was overloaded and the pilot wasn't properly certified, with toxicology indicating impairment. Those are the rails of the story. Everything else, the last-minute decisions, the push to depart early, who said what in the hangar, who signed off on which bags, who insisted on that exact flight, lives in a fog of grief, logistics, and conflicting memories. The music video for Rock the Boat had already been shooting. There were green screen setups in Miami and then the pivot to the Bahamas. Whether you call that a creative flex, a director's choice, or just production rolling with what looked good on film, the bottom line is the team wrapped earlier than expected and wanted to fly out instead of waiting until the following day.
And Missy is also credited with helping Rah Digga's career.
Airline weight limits and charter rules aren't suggestions, they're physics. But history is filled with stories where the checklist gets bent for one last run, especially when schedules are tight and everyone assumes it'll be fine. That's not conspiracy, that's the human habit of underestimating risk until it's too late. But this is where the story takes a turn, because a 2021 biography repeated an account from a local teen who said Aaliyah didn't want to board the plane, was terrified of flying, and was given a sleeping pill before being carried on. It's an account, not an official finding, reported years later and impossible to verify now, but it changed how a lot of people picture those final minutes. Was she asleep? Was that how it happened? Some listeners treat it like a missing puzzle piece. Others ask why it surfaced so long after. It's powerful either way, and it's one of those details that makes the internet go quiet for a second. Before this ever turned into an after-the-fact whodunit, Missy Elliott and Aaliyah were not just friends. They were collaborators whose fingerprints rewired R&B. Missy and Timbaland wrote and produced much of Aaliyah's 1996 breakthrough album, 1 in a Million. If Your Girl Only Knew, 4-Page Letter, Hot Like Fire, 1 in a Million, there's a reason those records still sound futuristic. Missy's harmonies and pen formed a language Aaliyah made look effortless. They continued to intersect. I Care For You, the aching ballad that became central to Aaliyah's posthumous collection, bears Missy's writing credit. Those are credits, studio time, release dates, and radio spins. You don't keep working through label schedules if you can't stand each other. You do it when the result feels bigger than the studio walls.
Because like, I keep my ear to the streets. Like, I'm aware of every single artist in every region doing what. Like, I'm one of those type of people that really sit around and like search these sites and look for new artists.
So where did the whispers of a falling out come from? Part of it is the way the industry flattens complicated relationships into one-liners. Part of it is people taking small gaps, fewer visible collaborations, different producers for specific songs, and reading it like tea leaves. And part of it is how other artists later told their side of separate misunderstandings. Years after Aaliyah's passing, one of their peers said on a podcast that she wasn't speaking to him near the end and hinted at tension with Missy and Timbaland. That's his recollection, not a court record. It's useful as atmosphere because it confirms what we already know about the business. Circles are close, egos are fragile, momentum brings friction. But it isn't proof of a major rupture unless you've already decided that's the only way to make sense of the silence that followed. Now, about the Missy knew more idea. Let's be honest, fans don't invent that kind of suspicion out of thin air. They build it from 3 things: silence, symbolism, and social media. Silence. Missy has never sat down for a tell-all about Aaliyah's final day, and she is absolutely not required to. Symbolism. Years of tributes where Missy calls Aaliyah her baby sister, speaks about her as a blueprint, and credits her with shaping sound, style, and an entire era. Social media. Every time Missy posts a remembrance, someone in the comments pries at the same sore spot. Why did you stop working? Did you fall out? What aren't you saying? This is where the internet turns into a courtroom where nobody's sworn in. People assume that if you're close to a tragedy, you must be sitting on a secret, and if you won't spill it, then the secret must be explosive. Or maybe grief is private. Maybe the most honest sentence in the world is, I don't know. And the second most honest is, I know, but it's not mine to tell. Another name gets dragged into the timeline, and it's not Missy. It's the director and the choice to shoot in the Bahamas. That decision becomes a magnet for what ifs. Some in Aaliyah's circle expressed anger afterwards. Creative calls are always easy to dissect after disaster, but unless you think a music video director is secretly a flight operations manager, connecting the location choice to the technical failures of an overloaded aircraft with an unqualified pilot isn't evidence.
This album, I'm very happy with this album because I feel like it's really Aaliyah, which is why I wanted to self-title this one. It's very different. It's a bit grown up. I'm a young adult now, and I think that really comes through in this album. I've grown. This one is really me in totality. So I just really hope the fans feel where I'm coming from and they can ride with me on this one.
It's grief trying to make sense of chaos. That doesn't mean you can't demand accountability from companies that sign off on weight, crew, and scheduling. You should. It just means you can't squeeze every complicated variable into one villain and call it closure. And if you think that sounds like Hollywood folklore, wait until you hear how the internet keeps trying to read a romance into Missy and Aaliyah's friendship. Let's be real, two women sharing genuine affection in public isn't some secret code. Missy often called Aaliyah baby sis. They hugged in behind the scenes clips, joked in the booth, and moved with the ease of people who trusted each other's taste. Fans took that closeness and spun a whisper campaign about a possible romantic undertone. There's never been confirmation of that, then or now, but the rumor persists because it lets people imagine a hidden chapter, a love the industry couldn't understand, an undercurrent that explains the depth of Missy's tributes. It's a ghost story people tell themselves when the real story, two artists creating something permanent and then losing one of them too soon, feels too bare. Then you get the prophecy that people swear by, the Paris interview where Aaliyah described a recurring dream of being chased, then lifting off into the air, flying free, weightless, untouchable. Is it chilling to hear that weeks before a fatal flight? Of course, but people have vivid dreams all the time, and memory sharpens after tragedy. The most respectful way to hold that quote is to let it be what it is, a beautiful, eerie piece of Aaliyah's own voice, not a prediction, not a clue, a moment that shows how poetic she could be, not how doomed she was. So where does Rah Digga fit into this? Not as a random name the internet dragged in last minute, but as part of the same late 90s and early 2000s orbit that included Missy, Busta Rhymes, Mary J. Blige, and a whole generation flipping the industry on its head. She and Missy share credits, ciphers, stages, culture. That proximity is why people assume Rah might know more than the public. Here's the careful truth. There's no on-record interview where Rah Digga reveals hidden facts about the crash. What she does have is credibility and a reputation for speaking plainly when it matters. So if she ever chose to put something on the record, people would listen. Until then, anchoring a theory in she probably knows isn't a receipt. It's a wish that someone from the inner circle will narrate what the rest of us can only reconstruct. Meanwhile, the aviation side of this story remains the part that points to real-world failure. Reports say the plane was several hundred pounds over the limit. On small aircraft, luggage matters, head counts matter, fuel load matters, the pilot's qualifications and condition matter. That's not drama, it's aviation. When the findings later mention a lack of proper certification and impairment, people read it as proof that something wildly negligent occurred upstream. That opens the door to all the dark questions. Who authorized the flight? Who pushed past warnings? Who insisted the bags must go too? Who looked at a stop sign and said, let's just go? Those questions are fair. Do they point to Missy? Not unless you've already made up your mind and need a famous name to hold your anger. Halfway through, the narrative flips because the story stops being about a secret and starts being about how we process loss. Missy's public record shows years of tributes, long before social media turned grief into a gotcha game. She speaks about Aaliyah in that way that family does, present tense as if she just stepped out of the room. When Missy got her flowers for her own career milestones, you could hear how she held space for Aaliyah, not as a plot twist, but as a pillar. That consistency undercuts the "they hated each other" line that the internet drags out whenever two giants stop appearing in the same clips. If anything, it sounds like two careers that evolved with different collaborators at different times, and a loss that still stings through the microphone. But people want a rift because a rift comes with sides. They want a secret because a secret promises an answer. And they want a reveal because a reveal means someone somewhere can finally say the definitive line and make the grief behave. So we start playing scavenger hunt with interviews. Timbaland once spoke about being attracted to Aaliyah when they first met, then pulling himself back and framing himself as a protective older brother. Fans grab that, mash it up with rumors of creative disagreements, then stitch in a late-stage slowdown in public collaborations, and boom, now you've got a shadow play of jealousies, triangles, and icy hallways. It might be a compelling drama, it just isn't necessarily the truth. And before we wrap, there's one final detail that shows you how these stories keep breathing decades later. Every time an anniversary or a birthday passes, Missy posts, and the comments fill up with two rival instincts. The first is love, fans leaving doves and hearts and "we still miss you" messages like a digital vigil. The second is pressure, people demanding answers, pushing conspiracies, accusing the inner circle of hiding what really happened. Both instincts come from the same place. We don't know how to hold a loss that still feels unfair, so we keep asking the universe to explain itself. Sometimes we disguise the prayer as a theory. So what does Rah Digga actually reveal in all this? Not a confession, not a hidden tape, not a deathbed secret. What she reveals by her proximity and her own career's overlap is the reality that this story wasn't just two artists and a flight plan. It was an era, a network, a creative engine where Missy was central, Aaliyah was ascendant, and the industry was changing so fast that entire sounds evolved between one album cycle and the next. If Rah ever chooses to speak in detail, it'll travel. Until then, what exists is a map of relationships that were real, messy, loving, productive, and, like most relationships in music, complicated in private ways that don't translate neatly to timelines. Let's put the puzzle on the table one last time. Light touch, no overkill. Aaliyah's crash details, the overloaded aircraft, and the pilot's lack of proper certification and impairment all come from official findings. The sleeping pill story about Aaliyah resisting the flight and being carried aboard is an account from a later biography, not an official report. The idea that Missy and Aaliyah secretly hated each other or were romantically involved is fan speculation that's never been confirmed. The argument that the director's location choice caused the crash is a leap because creative decisions are not the same as flight operations. Rah Digga having secret knowledge she's hiding remains an assumption unless and until she chooses to put something concrete on record. If you're here for the truth that can survive cross-examination, it's this: Aaliyah was brilliant. The plane should not have left the ground under those conditions, and the people tasked with keeping passengers safe failed them. If you're here for the mystery, it's the same story told through a different lens. A young icon with a dream. A last-minute schedule shift, a flight that shouldn't have happened, friends who still speak of her like she's in the next room, and a public that refuses to let the final chapter be only physics and paperwork. The reason this particular rumor, "Did Missy know?" keeps returning is because Missy stands for control. She invented an entire brand of it. Control of sound, control of image, control of the weird and the wonderful. When people don't have control of a tragedy, they look for the person who does. But creative control and cosmic control aren't the same thing. Missy's consistent choice has been to honor Aaliyah's legacy with love, not with gossip. You can call that silence. I call it discipline. So where does that leave us? With a question only you can answer: what counts as credible in a story like this? Is it an official report, a behind-the-scenes witness, a friend's recollection, a pattern across years of social posts? Or is it the feeling that the math doesn't add up unless someone's keeping a secret? Drop your philosophy in the comments. I want to read how you weigh receipts versus rumor in a case where the facts are cold and the memories are warm. If you're new here, this is Receipts Over Rumors, and we keep the spice level medium hot. We nod to the hard evidence once, we flag the contested parts with careful phrasing, and we let the story breathe without pretending we're a courtroom. If you've made it this far, do me a favor, like the video so more people who care about Aaliyah's legacy find it, and hit subscribe if you want more deep dives that don't insult your intelligence. Because here's the truth we can live with. Even without a secret, the story is still heavy. Aaliyah's influence didn't clock out in 2001, it lingers in how we dress, how we stack a harmony, how we measure cool. Missy's tributes read like someone who lost lost a sister, full stop. Rah Digga remains a respected voice from the same orbit, not a missing tape, and the Last Days chain of bad decisions is still the only villain we can point to with certainty. But this is where the story takes a turn, not toward a reveal, but toward a challenge. If the internet finally sets down the magnifying glass and stops treating grief like a mystery box, what's left? A young woman who changed music, a set of preventable failures, in a community that still says her name. Maybe the secret everybody wants isn't a piece of hidden information at all. Maybe the secret is accepting that some stories don't unlock, they echo. And before we wrap, one last promise to talk about Aaliyah without using her as a vessel for every paranoia the internet wants to feed. To credit Missy without demanding she narrate the worst day of her life for our entertainment. To acknowledge Rah Digga's proximity without turning her into the town crier for a tragedy that doesn't belong to her. We can be curious and still be kind. Now it's your turn. What do you consider the most credible part of this saga, and what do you think is pure internet telephone? If you've got a receipt, a quote, or a clip that you trust, drop it below. If you think we gave too much weight to rumor, say that. If you think we were too cautious, say that too. Hit like if you want YouTube to push this to more people who care about nuance, and subscribe so you don't miss the next deep dive. And if there's a story you want us to untangle, another legend, another timeline, another they're not telling us everything, leave it in the comments. Until then, rest in power, Aaliyah. And to everyone who loved her, in the industry or out here with us, we hear you. We're still listening.